and welcome to the Northwest Treatment Vidcast.
Hello, everybody. Jessica,
Hey,
what are we talking about today?
hey, Léa. We were going to actually talk about something we ran across on our social media page. We are currently having a Facebook, a Twitter, an Instagram, these videos. We're kind of just jumping all in. And one of the things we ran across was an interesting combination. It was an image. These were 19 examples of human responses to a pandemic, which we're dealing with right now with COVID. And it's talking about how we shouldn't use these normal and natural responses as a reason to panic or think that we need to go get immediate mental help. So
Or
we wanted
give
to talk,
you a diagnosis.
correct, or diagnose yourself, which
Right.
you shouldn't be doing. It's always good to reach out if you feel like you do need help, but we wanted to talk about a couple of the points. So first, we wanted to let you know what the actual definition of a pandemic is. What did you find, Léa?
So, according to the WHO, a pandemic is defined as an epidemic occurring worldwide or over a very, very wide area, crossing international boundaries and usually affecting a large number of people. And this is a little bit different than, like, let's say, our epidemics that we have every year with the flu, because the flu is seasonal and we know it's going to come back. And so that's why it's not considered to be a pandemic, according to the WHO.
Right. And so there is a lot of kind of overlap. People aren't quite sure what terminology to use. But the thing to remember is what's currently going on with COVID-19 is not necessarily normal, is
No.
not something that happens even every generation. And so it is completely different than what our experiences are. So, of course, we're not going to be sure how we're reacting to stuff.
And so this is partially why we wanted to show you guys the infograph from Trauma & Co., who are the people that came up with it, and to also talk about 6 of the 19 points that they had to kind of just reassure folks that some of this stuff is normal. But again, wanting to echo what Jessica said, if you're having a problem and you believe it's a problem and a discussion. Like, I'm not going to go argue with people about that. But like one of the main points on there is resurgence of compulsive or addictive behaviors. Like, I know my eating has been definitely going a little bit haywire because of my personal background.
Right.
And a lot of us are eating our emotions. Like Katie Sackhoff, I don't know if you know this, she has a YouTube channel and she was talking about, like, she comes on and she's just like holding all this junk food in her arms and she's like, I've been eating my emotions. And I was like, yes, I identify.
Yes, most people I know have had pretty significant food changes one way or the other.
Yeah, for sure. And it's somewhat normal. But again, like when we're talking about things like alcohol or heroin or methamphetamines or any of those things, like,
right,
please reach out to one of us, reach out to somebody that you trust who can help you with that, just because those things can definitely become problematic very quickly.
Yes, and that's hard to break that pattern once you get it in a pandemic. You pick up a pattern, and then when things, or if things get a little bit different and settle down, and we don't know what to do with it.
The other one that I wanted to point out was anxiety about money, shelter, and food.
Right.
I definitely know that jobs are
Hard to
a
come
lot of
by
people.
now.
Yeah, a lot of people are losing their jobs. A lot of people are hoping they're going to keep their jobs. And if you're getting anxious about those things, it can trigger your past traumas. It can trigger all sorts of things, but it also is going to trigger this like survival instinct that you have from like Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Right.
Because the very first thing after being able to breathe is shelter and being able to have that. So if your housing all of a sudden is becoming threatened, being anxious about it and being like irritated and mad and angry, I would say very normal responses to a very abnormal situation.
Yeah, we definitely have a lot of articles coming out right now and a lot of people being concerned that we're going to have a big increase in the houseless communities because of, things had been pushed for a little bit here in the US, and maybe you managed to get some rent, help or not have to pay it and yet get kicked out.
Yeah.
But that's coming up quick. And there's a lot of, I know, shelters that are struggling with funding and struggling with getting people, roofs over their head. And house security and food security are very important.
They are. And the third topic that resonated with me was the feeling exhausted, fatigued, lethargic, unmotivated. Whenever you're worried, that takes energy. Like the act of worrying takes energy. And so if you're always worried about something, whether it's your money or whether it's getting sick or whether it's, I don't know, pick a plethora of issues that are currently happening right now.
Yeah.
it does wear at you ultimately. And if you're having days where you're just like, I just kind of want to hide in my bed and sleep all day, that is again a normal response. I'm not saying like you've been sleeping for the past 4 months. Probably not normal at that point. Probably
Right.
something you might want to check in with about. But if you're having a day here and there where you're just like, I'm done, I'm exhausted to the bone, I just want to sleep today, do it. Take care of yourself for sure. And, check in with yourself. If you think this is a normal response, great. If you don't, then check in with one of us or reach out to somebody you trust.
Right.
And so which ones were the ones that resonated with you, Jessica?
Well, the first one that I picked from, again, that list of 19 that we were looking at is the obsessive and or intrusive thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
There's definitely a lot of people I've talked to, both friends and family as well as myself, that have had a lot of those issues come up, which are like, maybe situations that were years ago, maybe a bad interaction with an ex partner or a family member or a coworker, and all of a sudden you're like rethinking through what happened and blaming yourself, or how could I have changed that? And you're like, why am I thinking this at 3 a.m. and can't sleep?
Right.
And it's also really easy to get obsessive about small stuff right now. Again, it's kind of a way for your brain to just hyper focus on some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Try to notice it, try to breathe, try to move past it. And, we do have a couple of videos about, some skills or some games to ground yourself and see if those could be helpful.
Yeah.
Other than that, I did want to also talk about, we are having a, resurgence of depression. There are people
Yes.
who have never had clinical depression and now have symptoms. Or you have people that had depression, me,
Mm-hmm.
that all of a sudden we thought it was mostly under control, and it was, and now we're in this kind of situation. It's normal for that to come back up.
Yeah.
One of the things that can happen in that I've noticed particularly in both friends and family is almost this small level of disassociation, where you're in the room with people, you might be having a conversation, and you just stop talking in the middle of the sentence. And whether it's because you're focusing on the TV, whether you're focusing on, something out the window, maybe on your cell phone. There's been a lot of people using phone games or
Right.
reading books on their phone or anything else, social media, and just disassociating from that conversation that you may actively have been having to hyper focus on something else.
Mm-hmm.
That stuff is happening, and that's okay. Hopefully notice it. And then if it becomes a bigger problem, then reach out. And then the last one I wanted to mention was basically this idea of how there's a lot of us who will go and care for other family members, friends,
Yeah.
to the detriment of ourselves. That's big. I mean, it's big in mental health. It's big in doctors and physical health. It's in any job or calling that is caring for other people, the helping professions. It's big.
Yeah.
But we have to be aware of it. We have to be aware of something called compassion fatigue, which is where you care so much about other people. You're showing your empathy to the point where you burn out and you don't take care of yourself.
Right. Like I know I definitely had to be careful with it, because to use one of our other videos, spoon theory, that if I use up all my spoons during the day with clients or with you, or just kind of like my day-to-day job stuff,
Right.
evenings can become very difficult for me with my family. And
Right.
the way I look when I get compassion fatigue is I'm irritable. I'm not a good mom. I'm not a good wife. I'm not a good person in general. I just don't want to talk to people.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely notice that I will pull away. I will get quiet. I will sit by myself. I won't reach out. And then I start getting in my head about, no one likes me. No one cares for
Yes.
me. If I don't do something for you, you don't care about me. And then when I have pulled back, we'll use the excuse that no one's reaching out to me as proof. And again, that's a cycle of my own mental health that I have to be able to be aware of, to be able to get help if needed and to break that cycle.
And so one of the things that we know that's been coming up is judging ourselves, right? We're having like this normal reaction again in this abnormal time. And I cannot emphasize this enough. Normal reaction in abnormal times.
Yeah.
And we are holding ourselves accountable to this code that's no longer the right code. And the problem is we don't know what the new code is. We don't know if
Right.
this is going to be permanent. We don't know if this is going to change again. We
Right.
don't know when it's going to change again. And so it's really hard to do that. And so like some of the last things I want to impart is be kind to yourself. You're having, again, there's no way for me to reemphasize this enough. Normal reactions to an abnormal situation.
Right.
There is no book on how to handle a pandemic. There really isn't.
And there's no one, no matter what they claim, that knows the next couple of things coming. You can be an informed person, but it's one of those where we just do the best we can with what we've got.
And so with that, we want you guys to feel free to reach out to anybody if you need it. Jessica and I are always there. And with that, we wish you to be well and to be healthy.
Thanks, guys.